Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and welcome back to me from the realm of the dead to the realm of the living to tell you a story about an absolute disaster of a series. Now, given today we're talking about the new Netflix Age of Samurai series, but before I pick it apart, I'd like to also underline the fact that I do know and respect the hard work of all the people that, worked hard on this. And there are some good things. I love the photography. I love the sort of almost black and white filter that gave it a sort of early Kurosawa Akira style feel to it. I thought it was a great choice. There are some good things, and I will mention them too, but there are also a heck of a lot of things that are an absolute mess, and I've got a massive list of bullet points. Let's get right into it. Let's begin with the elephant in the room, namely the armor. Now, as you know, most of the armor, I don't know if all of the armor, I suppose most of the armor that we see in the show is made by Iron Mountain Armory, and you already know, if you follow this channel, that I absolutely adore their work. In fact, even my samurai set of armor here was made by Iron Mountain Armory. I am planning of buying more armor from Iron Mountain Armory. I love their work, and I know the CEO of Iron Mountain Armory personally, Michael, and I know he knows a lot about armor, so a lot of the armor that we see in the show looks great. There are some problems, but I don't believe they are his fault. Like, for example, this monstrosity, no idea what that is. I don't know, a leather studded jerking. I don't consider myself to be like a samurai armor expert who knows every single possible kind of, even obscure, most obscure kind of armor used in the Sengoku period. But as far as I know, that sort of armor, I don't know, it looks weird. But the rest of the armor sets that we see are absolutely spectacular, so big thumbs up for that. But right off the bat, one of the main problems that I see with the armor is that the series speaks about, it's mostly focused on the three great unifiers of Japan: Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. And all of them, together with every other important character in samurai history, warrior, wear no helmets. I need a drink. Now, I already have a problem with this in every show, because it's just something that TV does. They just want you to be able to recognize the actors, and so they don't like putting helmets on them. Here's the thing though, can you recognize me? Like, literally, the Japanese kabuto, you can see the face. Given they also have face masks, and I have talked about face masks in the past, and it's great that they show them, but not all samurai wore face masks in battle. In fact, it's probably a minority that did. In fact, at one point in my studies about samurai armor, I even thought that nobody did, but I did find iconography that shows samurai using these in battle. So at first I thought they were just something that the samurai would wear outside of battle, but then I changed my mind. I do believe now that some samurai would wear these you don't have to stick it in the face of the main protagonist if you don't want to. Just do this and it will be okay. You'll be able to recognize him and it will make sense, because honestly, donning an entire samurai armor and leave your head completely exposed makes absolutely zero sense, and it kills my immersion, suspension of disbelief, whatever you want to call it. You even have options like remove the nose guard, put this on, you can still recognize me, but I understand if you don't want to do this. But just do this. I can recognize him. Also because, these three guys look nothing alike. Another thing is the missing of the decoration of the helmets. What's up with that? At the end of the day, that was actually a good way to recognize characters. Establish a very fancy helmet, possibly historically accurate, that is worn by Oda Nobunaga. Do the same with Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Help the audience familiarize with an Maedate. Not only I can recognize the character by the face, because you can see the face, but I can also recognize him because of the symbol. You don't need to strip the samurai off their helmets. It drives me nuts. The next big problem I have with this is this. This is a docu-series. It's not a TV series. It's a documentary with actual historians. What the heck are you doing with this? Yes, the katana is great. We understand that people are familiar with it. In all battle scenes, all we see is 90% of the samurai use the katana in battle, and you've got the occasional pole weapon, like the occasional naginata. Absolutely no yari! What is my yari? Yari is the Japanese spear, which should be ubiquitous on the Sengoku period, together with the, of course, Tanegashima Teppo arquebus, matchlocks, that they call muskets. I'll get to that. They are bringing up, spreading this absolutely debunked to death myth that the katana was the most important weapon of a samurai. I mean, if I'm a samurai, I will use my katana because I can slice time and space with it, and it contains my spirit, and I can use it to... No, 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 no. Katana was not a main battlefield weapon. I think I said it like a trillion times on this channel, and if you use your main battlefield weapon, which could be a bow, which can be a yari, which can be a naginata, although naginata is kind of weird at the end of the Sengoku period, but hey, it can be the arquebus. The moment you lose your main weapon, then and only then will you use this. Instead, in the show, they're absolutely obsessed with this, to the point... Because, I mean, I know some people are like, oh yeah, but you're overreacting. Yeah, they show the katana a lot, but that's because that's what people want to see. But it's not like they are saying that it's this amazing sword. Yes, yes, they are. I gotta read it to you. Open quotes. Of course, the samurai most iconic weapon was the katana, the Japanese sword, widely regarded as probably the finest sword ever made in world history. Close quotes. You gotta be kidding me. This is a sword. Full stop. There are plenty of other swords in history that work as well, better cutters. It's a good sword. I'm not saying that this is rubbish, like some people do. This is not the finest, most powerful, most incredible way. I mean, and that's weird because this is something that one of the talking heads, one of these experts, said. And the reason is quite simple. This guy is a historian, so he knows history very well and understands absolutely nothing about weapons. So I love it how they go to battle and they keep the sword in the scabbard like they want to do yai. They want to do batto. So they keep it even though the opponent is actually going to shoot at them because the opponent has got the Tanegashima Teppo. But this wouldn't have made sense even if the opponent was just charging with yari or with whatever. And you keep the sword here and you're like advancing, and the sword is, I mean, the sword in the scabbard stays in the scabbard before the battle, after the battle. During the battle, you draw it. Also, when talking about the samurai, again, historians say these are probably the greatest warriors history has ever known. It's like this has been catered towards weeboos. I mean, how can you say that? History has ever known. What about the Spartans? What about the Romans? What about medieval knights? This is the sort of thing that someone who is obsessed with Japan and has never opened a book about anything else on the planet says. The samurai were a great warrior caste. But saying that they were the most incredible warriors on the planet, it's like, I feel like I'm going back to the 80s, to be honest. When they introduced Tokugawa Ieyasu, first thing that they show is him killing a samurai on the floor. And how does he do it? I had to go back like 3 times. It's like, no, I can't. It's not possible. He pierces, so he's standing over the guy, and he pierces the guy's door, the armor. I swear to Buddha, I've seen it 3, 4, 5, 6 times to make sure. He goes exactly right through the door with this motion. Absolutely no strength, absolutely no power, and even with power, that would have been difficult. But he does it like with nonchalance. It goes like, meh, and he goes through the door, the breastplate, and kills the guy. And then we see the cut, the opening in the metal breastplate, and the blood pouring out. Why even bother wearing the armor? I mean, the guy's on the floor, he's not even wearing a helmet. He could have killed him in a million more realistic ways. No, they had to go through the armor because this guy is Tokugawa Ieyasu. So Tokugawa Ieyasu and his lightsaber, Jedi, goes through everything because this guy is Tokugawa Ieyasu. You don't mess with Tokugawa Ieyasu because it's gonna go through that. Oh my gosh. On minute 32, we see this battle. And during this battle, one of the most common things that we see is that the samurai, generally speaking, slice through the obi, so the area immediately underneath the breastplate of the armor that usually is not armored because you need to be able to bend, so you need mobility. And that is something that happens, I want to say, in every single samurai movie and samurai based or inspired video game. Now, this would be too much of a nitpick, so this is not really a complaint, it's just a little, I'd like to expand a little bit on that, because I think anyone who watches that might think, why bother wearing all of that armor to leave the area area of your guts, completely unarmored, so much so that just a simple slice, a simple cut with your katana is going to disembowel you, kill you. Why did they not armor that part? And the answer is they did. It's just that they never show it. There is one kind of armor called Kikogane door. It's like a vest that you can wear underneath your main door that is going to protect that area. You don't see it, but it's protected, which means you can't cut through it. And there are many other ways to armor that section. So yes, it can be on a light configuration a weak spot, but let's just not it's overdone. And I understand it's a nitpick, but it's just to expand. I think it's overdone. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, that's a weak spot of samurai armor, but actually the weak spots of samurai armor, there are weak spots, but they are fewer, and generally speaking, these weak spots can be reinforced if the samurai chooses to do so. The map is another thing that I just don't get. It's beautiful from an artistic point of view, but how did they manage to mess it up? I mean, just to say one, they messed up where the Date clan is. It's in the wrong place. How did that happen? I mean, on this video, I'm just talking about episode 1, because I've got so many things to say about episode 1, and I'm going to continue this. I'm going to make this into a series. But so I'm making the series on the debunking Age of Samurai, but if you want to learn more about the Sengoku period, then I strongly suggest you to check out a channel called The Shogunate, because it's got a massive series on the Sengoku Jidai, excellently made, so check it out, link in the description below. We also see the ritual Chiburi, the movement that samurai do to ritually remove the blood from the blade. Now this is probably not something you would have seen in the Sengoku period, I'd like to underline. It's mostly a move that has been ritualized to represent something that did happen, which was the removal of the blood from the blade, because you don't want blood in the blade when you put it back in the scabbard, because it's going to create mold and it's eventually going to rust and ruin your blade. In Yaido, in Kenjutsu now, we see this ritualized movement, and sometimes it's just, you just swing the sword like this. Other times, like in Katori Shintoryu, they do this movement, but this is ritual. It was never done. Not on the battlefield. Absolutely adamant about that. So how did they? Also because it wouldn't work. I mean, you can do this all you want, blood is not just going to disappear out of it. So what did they do? They did something that I would really like to start seeing a bit more in video games and samurai movies. This is Chiburi in the real Sengoku Jidai. Now, to say a positive thing, I like how they represented the brutality of samurai combat and the violence of it. That was great, very well represented, although very few people in the battles. They don't really look like battles very much. They look like a couple of guys having a scrap, really. But apart from that, but they do show one thing that we often don't see, and it's absolutely historical, and I love that, is it's the shows, the presentation, the display of the heads to the overlord. Now that's great, because that did happen, and it's often never really seen. And so basically, after you fight a battle, let's say that you are a samurai and you manage to kill 3, 4, 5 enemies, you would cut their heads off, whether they be Ashigaru, whether they be samurai. There are different rules on it, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you just cut these heads off and bring them to your lord. So the idea is either you bring him many heads, so you're like, hey, look, this is what I've done, my lord, and you show like you brought like 7, 8, 9, 10 heads, because like, oh, look at this guy, he brought me a lot of heads. Or perhaps you just brought 2 heads, but one of them is like a very famous samurai, someone important, like the leader of the army, or someone famous, so you show him and like, look, this is the guy, this is my kill. And we know that sometimes samurai even tried to fake it, even tried to bring heads that pretending they were famous people and they weren't, and sometimes that could have been problematic if your lord found out. So it was an important part of Sengoku brutality. But the historian who speaks about it, I'm confused, because he says this was done to mock the opponent, the defeated opponent, and that's absolutely not true. I mean, as far as I understand, no one in Japan thinks that. Among the very important historians in Japan, and even outside of Japan, this was done to gain a reward. It wasn't done to mock your opponent. In fact, even in the very TV series, they say that they usually covered them with perfume and even put makeup on to make them presentable. The idea that this was done to mock, it's a very Western point of view. It wasn't done to mock. It was done with respect, as much as you can do something like that with respect. But you know what I mean? In the context of that period, we know of rules about the fact that if you are fighting an Ashigaru and you manage to overwhelm him together with your other surrounding friends during the battle, then it says detach his head, cut his head off quickly. While he's alive, you don't have time to waste. But if your opponent is samurai, first kill him and then remove the head. So there is a sort of respect in it, and because he's samurai, so it's not mocking at all. Now again, since we're focusing on the first episode, another thing that I really liked is that they speak about these, the Tanegashima Teppo matchlock type arquebuses. Very, very important, and one of the characteristics of Oda ingenuity and his openness to the West and his fascination with Western technology, art, anything Western really, religion even. And I love that, but I wish they had shown it. They mention this meetup with the Portuguese, but they never really show it. I was actually looking forward to see this, to see how they communicated, to see what the Portuguese, how they showed these originals, and then they were copied and mass produced in the Isle of Tanegashima. I'm grateful that they showed it. I'm grateful that they did, and I like how they showed it used in action. It's kind of weird that we never see in any of the battles so far a stationary shield, a tate. That little weird, but I like how they show how these are used. I wish they would have created more realistic barricades, because sometimes barricades they would put straw in front of them to reduce the speed of the bullets, of the balls, should I say, of the arquebuses. But in general, I like how they show that. I like that they show the power of these, the stopping power of these, and how they could pierce armor, even though again in the Sengoku period they start making the so-called Tameshi Gusoku, which were tested suits of armor that were actually able to stop arquebus balls up to a certain range. But you know, that's okay. I understand. They need to make it concise. I like what they do with the Tanegashima Teppo. As I say, my only complaint is that I wish they would have shown this meet of the West and the East, because it was a very important thing, and it was what actually changed the face of warfare in Japan at the period, and it defines Oda Nobunaga's character and military genius. Another thing that really weirded me out is that, for what I could see so far, and I still have to see the rest, but I see no sashimono, so no banners worn on the back of the samurai, which is very strange because they should be there. And also I see no horo, which are the massive things that sometimes you see. I mean, if you play Total War, you probably have seen them in cavalry, and perhaps you even thought, what the heck are those? It looked like massive balloons, like backpacks that these samurai sometimes would wear, but those were used in a way as a anti-arrow sort of protection that would fill up with air as the samurai would be charging into battle on his horse, on his mount, and then if arrows would arrive, these should prevent arrows to penetrate. It's kind of strange that they don't show any of this, because I don't think that making one or two would impact the budget that much. But anyhow, all in all, Oda Nobunaga, I think he's a good actor, but the way they showed him, they portrayed him in the show, they make him look like a lunatic, like a crazy maniac, whereas I don't think that fits him well, or it doesn't fit the historical figure as well. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, I think they found an actor that is absolutely fantastic, because he really looks like the guy. I don't know where they found him, but it really does look like the way we see Toyotomi Hideyoshi represented, so big thumbs up for that. Although it's kind of weird that they show that he's the one that killed Yoshimoto, another important character, whereas that never happened. Toyotomi Hideyoshi participated into the battle, the raid, should I say, the night raid, but as far as we understand, he wasn't the one to kill Yoshimoto, but I know they went for that. It's very romanticized, that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't feel like an actual documentary or docu-series. It feels like a romanticized, Japan is so cool anime that is sort of representing Sengoku Jidai. But one thing that is really strange, and that really has to do with every single samurai shown in this series, is that no one has got samurai hairstyle. There is no chonmage, there is no shaved upper head. Instead, what we see are again anime/manga character hairstyles. But here's the thing, this is set in the 15th century, in the 16th century. That's not what the samurai class looked like in that period. Very odd costume, we could call it, choice. The hairstyle, completely wrong absolutely anachronistic. But anyway, this is what I wanted to talk about today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, thumbs up, share it with your friends, because if I see that the video is doing well, I will make a review of episode 2 and then a review of episode 3, and I will continue to do so if you enjoy me talking about these things. But again, I respect the hard work of the people that worked into this, but it feels weird because it gives me the feeling that some of the people who are in charge made some very questionable choices, and Katana is super powerful. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up, and if you're not yet members of this community, become a noble one. Subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron and to not miss the rest of this series. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Saraba.